I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
Scarlet Nation, welcome to another episode of Night Watch. I'm your host, Larry K. Guys, if you have not done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. It's right here, especially if this is your second, third time watching me. You've tuned in. You see that maybe you're going to stumble across my content once in a while. I'd really appreciate if you just smash that subscribe button right here. Take a second of your time while you're listening to hit it. Channel's been growing great. Been getting a lot of positive feedback, and I really appreciate anybody who supports the channel. Our goal is 500 subscribers. Once you get to 500 subscribers, there's a lot of other things I can implement into the channel that can help us continue to grow and help me to continue to produce good content for you Rutgers fans out there. So if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing. It's greatly appreciated. We got some news today, first of all, on the kickoff time for the next home game, which will be Rutgers against Wagner, and that's going to be a 3:30 kickoff, which I think is absolutely excellent news for us. I believe that's the 30th of September. Excellent news. I think 3:30, I told you last time, I think 3:30 is probably the best kickoff time in college football these days, at my age anyway, but it's great to tailgate, especially when it starts hitting fall time. You get in the game, but you still get out of the game with some nighttime left. But you don't have to run into the game with a breakfast and a Taylor Hammer pork roll, egg and cheese in your hand, running into the stadium. So that's good news. I think it'll be fun. I think we have obviously a great chance to start the season with a lot of wins. 4 wins, it looks like, if you go by what most people are expecting. I'm not selling us short, though. We could be 5-0. After that, but we can't look ahead. We have Michigan on the horizon, and I will speak to you guys soon about Michigan, hopefully in another video later this week. But I just wanted to bring you, just on this rainy Monday, this rainy Victory Monday, I wanted to bring you 5 thoughts from Night Watch, from me, on the program thus far in 2023. And number 1, Coach Schiano was 100% correct about the pipeline and Rutgers being a developmental program. Now, when Coach Schiano initially said this, I think a lot of people took it out of context to mean the program is going to be perpetually in limbo. The program is going to take a decade to even get anywhere near on the level of equal footing or competitive footing. That was kind of like Coach Chris Ash used to say, like he was always the goalposts were always moving a bit back for when Rutgers could even begin to even have any semblance of respectability. I really dislike that about Coach Ash's philosophy. Always saying, we're in the hunt. We're not even close to being competitive. We simply want to have some little bit of respect, and we're really far from that. I don't think that's what Schiano meant. What I think Schiano meant by being a developmental program was that we are not the program that's going to go out there and snag 5-star recruits day in and day out. We are not the program that's going to go out there and take the second-string players from big-time programs like Alabama and Ohio State and get them to come here en masse. Once in a while, you'll get a guy like that who wants more playing time, who's from the area or for some other reason. But by and large, we are a developmental program, i.e., we are going to take players who have a lot of potential, who have all the right intangibles, who the coaching staff has seen something that they think fits our culture and philosophy, and we are going to develop those players, and it's going to take a few years to develop those players. But once those players are developed, we are going to have them as the starters at the front of that pipeline, and then we are going to have developing players behind them in the pipeline. And once that pipeline is filled, then ideally we will have upperclassmen starting who are competitive on the Big Ten scale, and we are going to have other guys who are have just as much potential behind them. And not only that, you're going to have guys waiting in the wings and depth in case somebody goes down. Point number one is that he was 100% correct about that. If you look at this season's team so far, one thing we've learned is that look at the running back room, even look at somebody like Taj White on the offensive line, not there yet, not somebody who's this bona fide multi-year starter, but getting there, somebody who was there when Needham went down, who can fill in and can be serviceable where we're not grasping for straws as soon as a starter goes down. Take a look at the running back room. It is extremely deep. Aaron Young still hasn't really come back. And yet, Sam Brown's really not fully back, in my opinion. And yet, look what we're doing on the ground. Look at somebody like Kyle Monangai, who was touted by those who knew what they were talking about coming out of high school, but was not the Jalen Berger recruit, was not somebody who came in freshman year and was running people over. But look at his development, right? Look at guys like Shaquan Loyal, who touted recruit, known recruit, respected recruit, but is really, making his presence felt with turnovers, things like that. Look along the defensive line, look at other guys. Look at Holland Pierce, who came in very, very raw. But had all the frame. He was large, he was big, but he had to change his diet, change his body a bit, and learn technique. And look how far he's come. His Pro Football Focus grades, not that everybody subscribes to that, but his grades have been good so far. Shiano was right, and we're seeing it this year. Maybe the last 2 years, it seemed like there was a little bit of impatience, me included. Me 100% included. Is this ever going to get where we want it to go? But now you're seeing, I think this year, the first thing we've learned is that Shiano was 100% correct about that. And when these other positions, like wide receiver, stronger along the offensive line, when other positions, tight end, when other positions also have that pipeline filled the way running back does, we are going to continue to see the program become not only more competitive week in and week out, but become more stable overall, because one loss or one transfer or one season change will not necessarily totally wipe out the team and how good it could be. The second thing we've learned in 2023 is that the 2023 class may be a bit better than we thought. The class was ranked in the 50s. There are still several players within the class that we haven't seen yet or that we're not sure how good they're going to be, who are, as we said in point one, developing. But through 3 games, Ian Strong and Benjamin alone, Deshaun Benjamin alone, show us that a class that wasn't necessarily rated very high on paper, that seemed to get a little pessimism to set into the fan base, is better than we expected. If you have 2 players already who have made significant impacts on the offensive side of the football, which is somewhat to be expected since the offense was a little weaker, but nonetheless, that have made significant impacts on the offensive side of the football from that class already through 3 games as true freshmen, then that bodes well for the strength of the class in general. And if you get impact players, of a handful of them in a class, then it's probably a successful class. Impactful players, game-changing players. And it's looking like some of these guys may be exactly that. And I find it interesting, one in New York and Strong, but then somebody, Benjamin, out of Florida. And if you look at the, blueprint for what's going on in the upcoming recruiting class, 2024, and you're seeing how we're going around to other states and recruiting kids who may not be way at the top of those states, but in states where the talent is so much deeper that those players would have been higher in New Jersey rather than simply chasing the New Jersey kids around. You're seeing that philosophy may pay dividends as we go on. And then you look at the youngest Toure we have from Irvington. And again, you go back to some of the kids from the Essex County Publics that are making impacts for us now, and the South Jersey Publics that are making some impact for us now. And out on Long Island where, traditionally, although that's changing a bit, traditionally they weren't always recruited as heavily nationally as some of the Jersey kids were from the North Jersey Parochials. you're seeing that philosophy can pay dividends, and it gives me, and it should give you, a bit more faith in Schiano's recruiting philosophy, and the fact that it may not always be flashy, it may not always show up in stars, but if you trust the analysis and the vetting process of the staff and the philosophy of the staff, it bodes well for the future. The third thing we've learned thus far, we have a QB. And when I say that, I don't say we have a QB who has arrived. What I mean is we have a quarterback in the program who's developing and who has a ceiling and potential such that he can truly lead us to competitive football and being a solid starter in our conference. And we haven't had that in a very long time, nearly 10 years. So, seeing Gavin Wimsatt play, if you had told me, or if I had told any of you prior to the season starting, that through 3 games against Northwestern, Temple, and Virginia Tech, Gavin Wimsatt would start all 3 games, play from beginning to end, have a passer rating that's second in the Big Ten, have no interceptions, and would have created with his legs on multiple occasions for touchdowns, as well as his arm for touchdowns. And the only caveat was that he threw for only 40-something yards against V-Tech, but we won and he scored a touchdown with his legs. Every single Rutgers fan out there would have signed up for that. Everybody would have signed up for that. And I bet most of them, including me, would have said, there's no way he's getting through 3 games without an interception. And we would have been wrong. When you put it in perspective, what the expectations were, what we saw last year, what the expectations were when he was recruited, and then what we've seen through 3 games of the 2023 season, I think it shows clear progress, and it evinces the fact that Gavin can still very much reach the potential we had aspired for him to reach when he was recruited, but that maybe we weren't sure about last year as he was taking his lumps as a freshman. But here's the thing. He's going to take more lumps this year as a sophomore. I'm telling you now, it's not going to be all roses, and it wasn't even the last game, because while he didn't make any mistakes, it wasn't like he lit it up. There's going to be more lumps, but that's okay. Don't get scared. Don't waver too much. Don't get pessimistic if he has a rough game or two. This is a rough conference, and he's a young quarterback who still lacks certain weapons and will still lack probably some protection as we go up against more formidable defenses with more size in the trenches and more speed and quickness and experience in the skill positions. But that doesn't negate the fact that through 3 games we can see we finally have a quarterback and he's continuing to develop. Just give it some time. That's huge for this program. That's huge for this program. Number 4, fourth thing we've learned so far through 3 games. This isn't last year's 3-0 Rutgers team. This isn't the 3-0 Rutgers team from 2 years ago. This isn't the team that barely made it past Boston College, who went on to become a terrible, one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country last year. This isn't the same team who needed a pick 6 and then another defensive stop to barely limp out of Temple with, knock on wood, cross your fingers because injuries could always happen, significant injuries to a quarterback who's, a large part of his running, his ability or threat or, him as a weapon was his ability to run, and then he hurt himself. This isn't that same team. Isn't the same team where a lot of the guys were younger, even the ones who were making an impact. This is a team who took on, however bad they are, and they're bad, I'm sure, a Big Ten team in their home opener, in their season opener. Not a good Big Ten team, but a Big Ten team. And beat them handily. And showed ability and discipline and certainty in how they did it. This is a team that stepped on the neck of Temple when things got dicey and finished Temple off without any doubt deep into the fourth quarter. This is a team who beat Power 5 opponent Virginia Tech, again, handily, but for, I thought, a bit of conservative play calling on the part of our coaching staff, was able to overcome that and line up. And this is the thing about Virginia Tech, right? This isn't the Michigan State game from 2020, the COVID year, or, the Ohio State second half from the COVID year where Schiano was going crazy, pulling out all these trick plays and gimmicks and turnovers and freak occurrences that allowed us to stay in games or allowed us to pummel these three teams. I'm especially talking about the Virginia Tech game when I say this, but all three of those games, we lined up man to man. Football play to football play, nothing out of the ordinary or outside the box. We lined straight up with these teams, and we took it to every single one of them, just ho-hum, lunch pail football style, and beat them straight up, and beat them decisively straight up. I have not seen that in probably a decade, let alone the last few years in Schiano 2.0. This is not last year's 3-0 team. Does that necessarily guarantee success above and beyond what expectations were? We'll see. But this is not last year's team. And there are reasons for that. Look at the discipline. Are we waiting for plays until we're deep in the play clock? Are we getting so deep in the play clock that we know a penalty is coming? Are we jumping for false starts? Are we jumping off sides all the time? Are we committing bonehead penalties? No. Does the offense constantly running plays far behind the sticks and getting caught in second and longs? No. Do we look like we can complete forward passes? Yes. Are we playing complementary football? When the defense needs us, is the offense stepping up? When the offense needs the defense, are they stepping up? Special teams. Are you nervous when Jay Patel steps up to the ball? Does he look nervous when he kicks extra points? None of it applies. So this is a different team than last year's 3-0. But like I said, does that necessarily guarantee that this is going to be an above and beyond successful season? That leads me to the fifth thing we've learned through 3 games in 2023. The fifth thing we've learned, or at least I've learned that I'm telling you, is do not expect, and I think most of you know this, but it bears repeating. Do not expect this to be the pinnacle success. Do not expect this to be the breakout year, the 06 or even the 05, but it could be close to the 05. Could be close to the 05. Don't expect this season to miraculously explode into something stellar. And don't get discouraged if we still are right around that bowl bubble that many of us expected us to be around when the season ends. We are going up against a Michigan team that I know some say hasn't looked very good. I know we've played tough in the past, and I expect and hope we play them tough this week. But they are ranked very high for a reason. It's on the road, and they're going to be very tough to beat or even remain competitive with. But we will do our best, and I hope for the best. And I'm not counting our guys out, and never would, especially with the way they've been playing. But we still have Ohio State on the schedule, even though it's not the Ohio State of the last few years. It's still them. We still have Penn State on the schedule, who's looking very good this year. But then we have teams like Michigan State, Indiana. Some might even argue Wisconsin and Iowa, although Wisconsin, to me, still, when you talk about that depth, that war of attrition, that sheer size, I don't know that we can hang with them. And that, just like I said, where Virginia Tech, Northwestern, Temple couldn't hang with us for the full game and line up and play man-to-man football in the trenches, I don't know that we can do that with some of these teams, even the ones that look vulnerable. And these 3 games have taught us, for example, with the lack of passing yards against Virginia Tech, for example, with the lack of really good pressures day in and day out on defense with a banged-up offensive line or a young offensive line on some of these teams, I don't know that we've seen anything that would lead us to believe that we are going to smash expectations this year. But with the other 4 things we've learned, even if we don't smash expectations, you should still be positive and optimistic about this program and this team going forward. That being said, I predicted 6 wins in a bowl game this season. I'm sticking to that prediction. We have 3 in the bank already. You hope we can beat Wagner at home. But you don't take any young man who puts on a football uniform, you don't take for granted. So I'm not getting ahead of myself. But you hope that if you can take care of business, you'll have 4 wins in the bank going into October. And you got the whole rest of the season to try to find 2 wins. And with the way this team is playing, with the way they look more efficient, with the way they look deeper, with the way they look more like a solid, inside and out, well-coached football program, I wouldn't put it past them that we go bowling. And that was my prediction before the year. But we will see, and it may come down to a couple plays in a couple games to decide that. And that should not deter you in any way from being optimistic, because there are plenty of reasons for optimism. Those are the 5 things we've learned through 3 games of the 2023 season, according to me. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. But whatever you do, make sure before you close out of this video, you click subscribe. Subscribe to Night Watch, guys. I'll talk to you later in the week. I'm going to try to get a little tailgate fun video out like I did last week. We'll see how time permits. But I did get some cool footage, so I'm going to try to do that. Not this week. Maybe I'll do like a dual one later with a couple tailgates, but we'll see. Either way, I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the support I've gotten thus far. I'll talk to you guys very soon. Go Knights.